Hello everyone, Thursday Thoughts. This week I want to talk to you about risk exposure or exposure. So exposure as a term at a foundational level is really defined as being the state of having no protection in place against something extremely harmful. But it's also a term that gets used a lot in the risk management world as well. Now there's a very specific quantified definition that the markets and certainly insurance underwriters and actuaries use to very clearly quantify risk exposure. We're not going to address that today. What I thought we'd talk about is how you can practically understand risk exposure and then consider it in relation to your organisational risk controls. So it's just been the long weekend here in New South Wales, and our family, we're very big caravanners. We love camping and going up and down the coast. Over the course of that long weekend, I saw some hideous driving from other motorists on the road, and it got me thinking about this concept of exposure. So if you were to think about risk exposure in relation to traveling up and down a highway, towing a caravan or towing a trailer, a very, very common occurrence is where you've got two vehicles traveling in opposite directions, well in excess of 100 kilometers an hour, and the only risk control, if you want to talk about risk controls, in place is a dotted white line, or better still, maybe some little plastic sticks. So in a great scenario, you've got a concrete divider, but for the most part, you've got nothing other than a white line, and you're relying on the behavior or the competency of those drivers to be able to keep out of each other's way. So I thought from an organizational perspective, that's a great way to conceptualize risk exposure and think about it in terms of, would we let our organizations be exposed to a level of risk that's potentially catastrophic and have an extremely arbitrary or very low level risk control in place to prevent that from occurring, being the white line? So I think the answer is we probably wouldn't. And so I think this is a great opportunity for you to go back to your organization, particularly if you're on a board of directors, go back to your risk register, go back to your risk controls, and then specifically look at your risk controls and say, are we relying on administrative, or let's call very low level risk controls or weak risk controls as the sole line of defense for us against very, very bad things that might be the consequence for our organization if those controls fail? So if the answer is yes, then I would say you are exposed. What do you need to do about it? You need to review those risk controls, and you need to look at ways to strengthen them and replace them with stronger controls, or what we would call hard barrier risk controls. Controls that are not reliant on human behavior, not reliant on administration. So anyway, there you go. Thursday Thoughts. Hope you have a great week and rest of the month, and don't forget to wash your hands.